I was nothing. Dirty, poor, broken. He picked me up from the mud, made me feel like a queen. But the same man who saved me, destroyed me. And when I finally found happiness again, he came back. Life was hard. I was barely surviving. No one wanted to hear my story, not even me. My days were filled with hunger, my nights with tears. I slept in a small, leaking room with 3 other girls. We didn't talk much. We were all too tired from cleaning rich people's homes just to earn a meal. My story began in the narrow streets of Olenade, a small district known for its crowded buildings, muddy paths, and broken dreams. Every morning before sunrise, I would fetch water in a rusted yellow bucket, careful not to spill a drop. Water was like gold. I would brush my teeth with a piece of chewing stick and splash cold water on my face, just enough to look somewhat presentable. My clothes were second-hand and worn thin at the seams, but they were clean. I made sure of that. My mother used to say, "Jennifer, even if you have nothing, keep your soul clean. Keep your heart soft." She died when I was 15. Malaria took her in 2 days. I watched her shiver in a plastic chair because we couldn't afford a hospital bed. My father had disappeared years before, chasing another life in a distant village. No calls. No letters. Just silence. After Mama passed, I moved in with an aunt who saw me as free labor. I cleaned her home, washed her clothes, and cooked her meals. In return, she let me sleep on a mat in the corridor. I stayed because I had nowhere else to go. But deep down, I kept praying. Maybe someday, somehow, my life would change. And then, on a rainy Wednesday morning, it did. I was working for a cleaning agency. They sent me to clean offices downtown. The building was tall, with shining glass windows and a security man who looked like a soldier. I had never seen a place so bright, so cold, so rich. I kept my head down and focused on the floor, scrubbing until my fingers ached. Then he walked in. He wore a navy blue suit. Perfectly fitted. His shoes made a quiet tapping sound as he moved across the tiles. He smelled expensive, like cologne and confidence. He was on the phone, but he glanced at me. Just one glance. I quickly looked away. Moments later, the receptionist tapped me on the shoulder. "Mr. Adams wants to see you in his office." My heart raced. Had I done something wrong? Was I about to be fired? I walked in slowly. The office was large, with leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling windows. Mr. Adams was seated behind a desk, typing on his laptop. "What's your name?" he asked, not looking up. "Jennifer," I whispered. He looked up. His eyes were sharp but kind. "Jennifer," he repeated. "How long have you worked here?" 6 months, sir." He nodded slowly. Then said something that would change my life forever. "Leave your number with the receptionist. I have a job offer for you." That was the beginning of everything. When Adams offered me a new job, I didn't know what to think. Me, a girl who had barely finished secondary school. What job could I possibly do in a big office like his? He called a few days later. His voice on the phone was calm, confident, like someone who didn't believe in being told no. "Jennifer, I need someone I can trust. You have a presence. You don't talk much, but you listen. That's rare. Come to my office Monday, 8 a.m. sharp." I hung up and stared at the wall for almost 30 minutes. Was this real? Could it be a setup? But something in me whispered, "Take the risk. What else do you have to lose?" I borrowed a clean blouse from my roommate and wore the best skirt I had. That morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist smiled differently this time. As if she knew something I didn't. Adams led me to a smaller office next to his. "This will be your space. You'll help manage my schedule, organize meetings, take calls, and sometimes run errands. You learn as you go. I'm not worried. You're sharp. I had never touched a real computer before, but he showed me everything. Patiently. He taught me how to use email, how to save documents, how to prepare a basic spreadsheet. I fumbled a lot. I apologized even more. But he never raised his voice. Jennifer, he would say, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to want it. That first month, I went from scared to hopeful. I was earning double what I made cleaning homes. I had a seat, a desk, a name tag. People greeted me. People saw me. Adam started taking me to lunch. At first, I felt awkward. I didn't know what to order. Didn't know which fork to use. But he would laugh and say, eat what makes you happy. We talked about books. He was shocked I loved poetry. I told him I used to write poems when I was little, before life got in the way. He asked me once, what do you want, Jen? What would make you feel like you belong in this world? I didn't know how to answer. No one's ever asked me that, I said. He didn't push. Just nodded, like he understood the weight behind my silence. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, he drove me home. We sat in the car for a while, talking. It started raining. Softly. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Then said, you're strong. Don't let anyone convince you you're not. Not even yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word. Every glance. Something was changing. Something big. The next week, he handed me a small envelope. Go to this place. Tell them I sent you. Inside was a voucher for a full makeover. Hair, nails, clothes. I hesitated. Is this necessary? I asked. Yes, he said, without blinking. Because how you see yourself will change how the world sees you. That weekend, I saw myself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the reflection. I looked fresh, strong, beautiful. For the first time in years, I stood up straight when I walked. Not because I wanted attention, but because I finally felt I mattered. He noticed. Now that's the Jennifer I saw the day we met. It wasn't just about the job anymore. Something deeper was blooming. Something neither of us dared name just yet. I didn't understand the full weight of what he was doing until much later. But in that moment, Adams became more than a boss. He became my savior. My mentor. My hope. And slowly, almost against my will, I began to fall. I tried not to fall for him. I really did. I told myself over and over again, Jennifer, don't be stupid. Don't read into it. But it was impossible. Because every single day, Adams did something that made my heart stumble. It wasn't just the way he looked, although let's be honest, he was stunning. Tall, broad shoulders, clean-cut beard, and those eyes that seemed to look right into your soul. But it wasn't just that. It was the way he remembered the small things. How I liked my tea, the fact that I hated cold rice, that I hummed when I was nervous. He noticed. No one had ever done that before. At first, I thought he was just being nice. Maybe that's how rich people acted. Maybe he was just trying to make me comfortable. But then he started doing more. There were late-night texts about random things, do you believe in fate, or what's your favorite childhood memory? We'd talk until 2 a.m., and I'd fall asleep smiling. He began to compliment me, not just about my looks, but about my brain. My thoughts. My growth. Jen, he said one day as we sat on the office balcony sipping juice, you've changed so much. I hope you see that. I hope you're proud. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. No one had ever said those words to me. Then came the night everything changed. We had a small celebration at work. One of the company's contracts had come through, and Adams invited the whole office to a rooftop dinner. Lights were strung across the rails, music played softly, and laughter filled the air. I wore a long green dress. It was the only nice thing I owned at the time. I had bought it second-hand but saved it for something special. Apparently, this was it. Adams couldn't stop staring. I felt his eyes on me the whole evening. "You look beautiful," he said when he finally walked up to me. I blushed and looked away. "Thank you." He pulled me aside, away from the others. "You know, I'm not good with emotions," he admitted. "But I want you to know, you matter to me. More than I should probably admit." And then he kissed me. Right there, under the lights, above the city noise, with music floating through the air like magic. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was soft, real, and terrifying. I froze. Not because I didn't want it, but because everything in my body screamed, "You're going to get hurt." But I kissed him back. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying every second. The warmth of his lips, the way he touched my cheek, how his hand trembled just slightly. He was nervous too. That meant something, didn't it? The next morning, he acted normal. Not distant. Not awkward. Just normal. He smiled, asked how I was, and carried on as usual. It was comforting, but also confusing. Were we together now? Was I his girlfriend? We never defined it. And maybe that was the first red flag. But love doesn't care about logic. It doesn't follow rules. It just takes over. Our connection deepened. He would pick me up after work just to drive around. Sometimes we'd sit at the beach in silence, just listening to the waves. Other times, we'd talk for hours about life, pain, and dreams we were too scared to chase. He told me about his past. How his father left him and his mom struggled to raise him. How he started from nothing and built his company brick by brick. "I see a lot of myself in you, Jen," he said. "That's probably why I can't stay away." And I let myself believe he meant it. He bought me gifts. Not flashy ones, books, a soft scarf, little things that showed he paid attention. Once, he gave me a small necklace with the letter J. J for Jennifer. I asked. "No," he smiled. "J for Johnny. Because that's what we're on." My heart melted. But not everything was perfect. There were moments when he would withdraw. Go silent for hours. Avoid eye contact. I'd ask if something was wrong, and he'd say, "I'm just tired." Sometimes I caught him staring at his phone with a strange look. Other times, he would leave abruptly without explanation. But I ignored it. I told myself I was overthinking. That I was lucky to even have someone like him. One day, I asked him, "Are we something? I mean, is this a relationship?" He paused. "Jen, I care about you deeply. You know that. But titles, they complicate things. Let's not ruin what we have." I nodded. I smiled. But inside, something cracked. Still, I stayed. Because when he was with me, I felt alive. Seen. Loved. And after years of being invisible, that feeling was everything. But nothing good lasts forever. And I didn't know then that I was standing at the edge of heartbreak. At first, it was little things. Nothing loud. Nothing obvious. Just a slow, creeping change in the way he looked at me. Or rather, how he didn't. He stopped texting good morning. Stopped sending late-night messages about the moon or the books we both pretended to be reading. I would still text first, and sometimes he would reply. But it always felt short. Empty. Busy, he would say. Work's crazy. I believed him. He had warned me once, hadn't he? That he wasn't good with emotions. That he was complicated. Maybe this was just one of those phases successful men went through. But something felt off. He used to light up when I walked into a room. Now he barely noticed. He used to listen when I spoke. Now his eyes wandered. He stopped asking how I was doing. Stopped caring about my small victories, the ones he used to celebrate like they were his own. I made excuses for him. Told myself he was stressed, tired, overwhelmed. Told myself I wasn't giving enough, so I gave more. Cooked for him. Surprised him with thoughtful notes. Bought him a watch with my savings. He barely looked at it. Then came the lies. One day, he told me he had a meeting out of town. But I saw his car that evening parked outside a restaurant. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was someone else driving. Maybe. The next day, I asked casually, "How was your trip?" He hesitated. "It was good. Productive." I smiled. But inside, something screamed. A few days later, he cancelled dinner plans. I waited for hours, dressed and hopeful. No call. No message. Just silence. That night, I cried myself to sleep. He ghosted me for a week. Then he showed up like nothing had happened. "Sorry," he said. I needed space. I nodded, pretending that made sense. Space from what? I wanted to ask. But I didn't. I was afraid of the answer. He held my hand that evening, but it felt cold. Distant. Like holding the hand of a stranger who used to mean everything. Then came the end. It was a Friday. Raining. Just like the day we met. He called me into his office. No smiles. No warmth. Just a man with a wall around his heart. "I think we should stop this," he said. "Stop what?" I asked, though I already knew. "This, whatever it is. It's gotten complicated." I stared at him. Waiting. Hoping he'd say it was a mistake. That he was scared. That he loved me but didn't know how to handle it. But all he said was, "You'll be fine." I didn't cry right away. I didn't beg. I just stood there, like someone who had been hit but didn't feel the pain yet. Then he looked away. Not out of guilt. But indifference. That was what broke me the most, not that he ended it. But that it meant so little to him. I walked out of that office and into the storm. The rain drenched me, but I didn't care. It matched what I felt inside. Over the next few weeks, I became a shadow. I quit the job. Couldn't bear walking past his door. Couldn't face the pity in the receptionist's eyes. My apartment became a prison. I didn't eat. Barely bathed. My phone rang, but I never picked up. I stared at the ceiling, day after day, replaying every moment, every kiss, every lie. How did I get it so wrong? One night, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the girl staring back. Her eyes were hollow. Her smile, gone. But somewhere deep, my mother's voice whispered, "Jennifer, even if the world breaks you, keep your soul clean. Don't let heartbreak turn you cruel." So I stood up. Slowly. Weak, but not defeated. I took a shower. Opened the windows. Let the sunlight touch my skin. And for the first time in weeks, I said out loud, "He's gone. But I'm still here." Healing doesn't come like rain. It doesn't pour down and soak you with peace all at once. It comes in drops, slow, sometimes barely there. And for me, those first drops of healing came through pain. After Adams left me, I stopped being Jennifer for a while. I became a shell. I walked, I breathed, but I wasn't living. People around me could tell. My roommates gave me space, but they were worried. I heard them whisper sometimes, "She needs help," or "She doesn't talk anymore." But I didn't want help. I wanted to disappear. Until one morning, something changed. I was sitting on the floor by my window, just watching people outside live their lives. A small boy was dragging a tire with a stick, laughing as he ran. His joy was so raw, so full, that it made me feel ashamed of giving up. If he can laugh with nothing, I thought, maybe I can learn to smile again too. So, I picked up my phone and started scrolling for jobs. Cleaning, catering, anything. I didn't want to go back to an office, not yet. The memories were too fresh. I found a posting for a one-day catering assistant at a high-end private party. The pay wasn't much, but I needed to get out of the house. Needed to move. I ironed a white blouse, tied my hair up neatly, and showed up early. That night changed everything. The event was for some big business people, soft jazz music, white tents, waiters in black and white uniforms. I was assigned to the drinks table. My job was to serve champagne, refill glasses, and smile. That's when I saw him. Mr. Williams. He stood out, not because he was loud or flashy, but because of how quiet and composed he was. He wore a grey suit and walked like a man who had seen many storms but still chose peace. He didn't talk much, just observed. When I poured him a glass, he looked at me. Really looked. "Your eyes look tired," he said. Not rudely. Not flirtatiously. Just, honestly. I blinked, surprised. "It's been a long week," I replied. He nodded. "Still, you carry yourself with dignity. That's rare." Before I could say anything, he thanked me and walked away. But the words stayed. Later that night, as I was cleaning up trays, he returned. "Are you a full-time caterer?" he asked. I shook my head. "Just picking up extra jobs." He handed me a card. "If you're looking for something more stable, call this number." And just like that, he left. The next day, I stared at the card for hours. I googled his name. Mr. Benjamin Williams. CEO. Investor. Widower. A man with a reputation for being fair, private, and humble. I took a deep breath and called. He didn't answer, but his secretary did. She scheduled an interview for me the next day. I went in, palms sweaty, heart racing. Mr. Williams met me in a cozy meeting room. He wasn't behind a big intimidating desk. He sat in a regular chair, sipping tea. "You showed up. That says something," he said with a kind smile. He asked about my past, my goals, my story. I didn't give every detail. Just enough to explain the gaps in my resume and the pain in my eyes. He listened. Then he said, "I run a small team. We need someone to help manage customer service, respond to messages, take orders, talk to clients. It's not glamorous. But it's honest work. You'll be trained." I accepted on the spot. That job became my bridge back to life. Every day, I learned something new: how to manage emails, speak professionally, set boundaries. I made mistakes. Lots of them. But no one mocked me. No one ignored me. Mr. Williams would even drop by sometimes just to check in. "You okay today?" he'd ask. And every time, the answer became a little more true: yes. I started journaling again. Just small thoughts. Little poems. I took evening walks, watched the sunset, and listened to old songs that reminded me of who I was before Adams. I called my aunt and forgave her. She didn't apologize, but it didn't matter. I was beginning to grow. Weeks passed. Then months. And slowly, something else started to grow too. Mr. Williams began inviting me to lunch, not just professional ones. Quiet cafes, garden restaurants. We talked about books, travel, and faith. He never crossed the line. Never made me feel pressured. He was nearly twice my age, but I never felt small around him. Just safe. One afternoon, after a long client meeting, he walked me to my bus stop. "I know I'm older," he said quietly. "But I believe age doesn't matter when there's honesty and respect. I don't want to rush you. I just enjoy your presence. That's all." And then he left. No expectations. Just truth. That night, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally saw me without trying to fix or possess me. Maybe I could start again. It started with kindness. Genuine, quiet, steady kindness, the kind I didn't even know I needed. Mr. Benjamin Williams was not flashy. He didn't wear designer colognes or drive the latest sports cars. He wasn't loud or charming in a way that demanded attention. He simply existed in a calm, confident way that made everything around him feel safe. At work, people respected him deeply. Not out of fear, but admiration. He greeted every cleaner by name, asked about people's families, and gave chances to those others wouldn't even consider. He had built his company from scratch after losing his wife 10 years ago to cancer. They had no children. He never remarried. People said he poured all his love into his business. And maybe, into helping lost people find themselves. People like me. After that first bus stop conversation, our connection deepened in the subtlest ways. He never pushed. Never demanded. He simply made room for me to grow. He'd leave handwritten notes on my desk, "You did great today." Or, "Don't forget to eat." Sometimes it was a small quote. Sometimes, a funny cartoon sketch he'd drawn. Those little things. They meant more than expensive gifts. One Friday afternoon, I was working late. The office was mostly empty, and I was trying to finish a client report that had gone wrong. He walked by, peeked in, and asked, "Still here?" I nodded. "Trying to fix this before I go." He walked in, sat down across from me, and said, "Let me help." That night, we worked side by side, not saying much. Just sharing space. And when it was done, he looked at me and smiled. "You've changed a lot, Jennifer." I tilted my head. "Good or bad?" He thought for a second. "Beautifully. You've grown into someone who stands tall without needing anyone's permission." I didn't know how to respond. My throat tightened. Then he added gently, "You don't need saving anymore." That line stayed with me. It was the first time a man had loved my strength instead of fearing it. We started spending weekends together, not romantically, not yet. He invited me to community projects, book fairs, and business workshops. He introduced me to his circle, quiet professionals, artists, educators. People who welcomed me like I belonged. He never treated me like a project or a pity case. I was an equal. A partner in conversation. A friend. One Saturday evening, we were sitting at a beach cafe, watching the sunset. I turned to him and asked, "Why me?" He looked surprised. "What do you mean? Why are you so kind to me?" He leaned back, thinking. "Because you remind me that people can start over. That pain doesn't have to define a life. Because you work hard. You listen. You care. And I enjoy your company." He paused. "And honestly, because I've grown to care about you in ways I didn't expect." The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. It was warm. Full of possibilities. "I care about you too," I whispered. That was the beginning of something new. Something unlike anything I had ever experienced before. Our relationship wasn't fast or fiery like what I had with Adams. It was slow, intentional, healing. He would bring flowers just because it was Tuesday. We would dance in his living room to old school soul music. He taught me to drive. I taught him how to use TikTok, badly. He loved my flaws. My quiet. My loud laughs. My messy handwriting. He loved it all. I wasn't used to love like that. The kind that doesn't demand, but gives. That doesn't trap, but frees. The world around us didn't always understand. Some people judged the age gap. Others whispered. But we didn't care. We had our little world. Our peace. 3 months in, he asked me to move in. I said no. Not yet. 6 months in, he asked again. This time, I said yes. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. And for the first time since I could remember, my heart felt whole. Our age difference came up in conversations, especially when we were around people. Strangers assumed I was his niece, daughter, or assistant. We got stares. Whispered comments. Once, at a dinner party, someone said, "Wow, she's young enough to be your daughter." Mr. Williams simply replied, "She's wise enough to be my equal." He always had a way of protecting my dignity without making a scene. I loved him differently than I had loved Adams. With Adams, it was fire and mystery and pain. With Williams, it was like water, steady, essential, quietly powerful. He didn't just love the parts of me that were easy. He loved my scars. My fears. My silence. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I could see us growing old together, sipping tea on the porch, reading books in silence, supporting each other's dreams. One night, as we lay in bed, he held my hand and whispered, "You make this house feel alive again." Tears welled up in my eyes. Because I finally understood what it meant to be someone's peace. I was no longer trying to escape my past. I was building my future. And for once, it didn't hurt to look back. Because every step led me here. It had been 3 years. 3 years since Adams walked out of my life. 3 years since I broke into pieces and learned how to put myself back together. And now, here he was. I didn't see him at first. I was walking out of a conference, files tucked under my arm, smiling after a successful presentation. My phone buzzed, I looked down, and when I looked up, he was standing there. Adams. Time had changed him. He looked older. Sharper around the edges. His beard was fuller, his clothes more expensive. But those eyes, those arrogant, piercing eyes, hadn't changed. He smirked like we had just bumped into each other at the grocery store. "Jennifer," he said like a breath. "You look incredible." My heart didn't race. Not this time. It paused. "Adams," I said calmly. He studied me. Probably trying to place the new me against the version he left behind. I stood taller now. I didn't shrink. I didn't stutter. "You've changed," he said. I had to. We spoke briefly. He said he was in town on business. That he'd seen me speaking at the event and had to say hello. He asked for my number. I gave him nothing but a smile and walked away. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Adams began reappearing. Randomly. At events, near the office, once even outside the building where I lived. "I just want to talk," he'd say. "I've moved on," I'd reply. But he didn't stop. One day, he showed up with flowers. "You can't tell me you've forgotten everything," he said. "You loved me once. We had something real." I laughed, softly, sadly. "We had something painful, Adams. Not real." Then he said something that made my skin crawl. That guy you're with now, Williams. He's old. I'm still the one you belong with. I froze. I'm younger, stronger, better. You're still mine, Jen. You've just forgotten how it feels to be alive. I stepped back. You're wrong. I finally remembered. He tried everything, guilt, charm, even manipulation. He sent me old pictures, long messages, voice notes full of apologies and promises. He begged. Then he turned cruel. He accused me of being cold, fake, ungrateful. He said I owed him a second chance. But I owed him nothing. I spoke to Mr. Williams about it one night. I expected tension, jealousy, even anger. But he simply listened. Then he said, "Do you feel threatened?" "No," I replied. "Not threatened. Just disgusted." "Then we deal with it calmly," he said. "You don't owe anyone your peace." He offered to have Adams warned off legally, but I refused for now. I didn't want to give him that power. Instead, I sent Adams a final message. "I loved you. And I lost myself. But I found her again. I found peace. I found real love. Please let me go, for good." He read it. Never replied. And just like that, the door finally closed. That night, I stood by the window and exhaled. I wasn't afraid of the past anymore. Because I had something stronger, the present. And I wasn't that broken girl anymore. I was Jennifer. Oh. It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes the quietest chapters of your life are the most powerful. After closing the door on Adams for good, I felt something unfamiliar but beautiful, stillness. Not the numb kind. The healing kind. The kind where nothing is falling apart, and you can finally breathe without holding your chest. I was finally free. Not just from Adams, but from the version of me who needed to be saved. The version of me who thought love had to hurt to feel real. With that freedom came clarity. One morning, while sipping tea on the balcony, I looked out at the sunrise and asked myself, what now? What do you want? For the first time, the answer was crystal clear: I want to tell my story. So I started writing. Not just journaling, but really writing. My story. Every chapter. Every scar. Every triumph. I turned pain into paragraphs. Grief into pages. Healing into chapters. It started as therapy. Then, it became a mission. I created a blog. Simple. Raw. I called it Pieces of Jen. I didn't expect anyone to read it. But within a month, thousands did. Women wrote to me. Men too. People who had been abandoned. Used. Broken. People who had felt unseen, unheard, unloved. They found something in my words. Something they needed. You're saying what I couldn't. Thank you for making me feel less alone. I thought I was crazy until I read this. Those messages made me cry. Not out of sadness, but purpose. One evening, I sat with Mr. Williams, scrolling through the comments. "You're changing lives," he said. I shook my head. "I'm just telling the truth." "Exactly," he replied. "That's what changes lives." He supported me completely. Encouraged me to write more. Even connected me with a friend in publishing who said, "You've got a voice people need." That's when the idea hit me: what if this became more than a blog? So I wrote a book. It took months. Early mornings. Late nights. Tears and doubts. But I did it. Page by page, I built a bridge for others to walk across the pain I once drowned in. When I held the first printed copy in my hands, I wept. Not for the girl I used to be, but for the woman who never gave up on her. The book launched quietly, but grew quickly. Book clubs picked it up. Podcasts invited me. I gave interviews. People started recognizing my face. Not as someone's ex. Not as a pretty assistant. But as a voice. A survivor. A writer. It wasn't about fame. It was about legacy. One day, I visited the shelter I once lived in. The place I thought would be my ending. I donated books. Spoke to the girls. Some were pregnant. Others bruised by life in ways I knew too well. I looked them in the eye and said, "You're not broken. You're becoming." And they believed me, because they saw that I was proof. At home, Mr. Williams watched me with a quiet pride. He never overshadowed me. He never competed. He simply stood beside me. "You've done more in these few years than most do in a lifetime," he said one night as we danced in the living room. I smiled. I had to. "There's no going back." He kissed my forehead. "And I'm honored to walk beside you." I knew then that this wasn't just love. This was partnership. Respect. Truth. I wasn't Jennifer, the girl who was saved. I was Jennifer, the woman who saved herself and reached back to save others too. It's amazing how life finds ways to surprise you, especially when you stop waiting for permission to be happy. I never imagined a life like this. Not when I was scraping rice off cracked plates. Not when I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment, crying over a man who didn't know how to love me. And definitely not when I stood in front of that shelter mirror, trying to remember who I was. But now, here I was, living a life that felt like a second chance wrapped in grace. My book was doing well. But more than the sales or interviews, it was the impact that mattered. Survivors wrote me letters. Women invited me to speak at events. I mentored young girls. Hosted healing circles. Taught people how to turn pain into power. I wasn't a celebrity. I was a testimony. And with every story I heard, I healed a little more. Mr. Williams remained my rock. Our love wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was deep. Honest. A quiet rhythm that carried us through storms. We traveled together, Ghana, Paris, Zanzibar. We'd walk hand in hand, explore street food, visit bookstores. Sometimes, we'd say nothing for hours, just be in each other's presence. It was enough. And then came the moment I never expected. We were in Cape Town, standing on a quiet cliff as the sun dipped into the ocean. The sky looked like melted gold. He turned to me, holding my hand. "Jennifer," he said softly, "I never thought I'd love again. But you've brought so much life into mine. Peace. Laughter. Fire. I know we've done this life backward, met late, healed along the way, but I want to spend the rest of my days with you. Not because I need to complete you. But because I want to walk beside you, every step." Then he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, a ring. Simple. Elegant. Timeless. "Will you marry me?" I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I wasn't saying yes from a place of desperation. I wasn't broken or scared. I was whole. And I was choosing him with every part of me. "Yes," I whispered. We didn't have a lavish wedding. Just close friends, family, a garden filled with wildflowers, and laughter that sounded like music. I wore a simple white dress. He wore his soft gray suit. We wrote our own vows. "I don't promise perfection," I said. "But I promise honesty, growth, and love that listens." He replied, "I don't promise answers. But I promise presence, patience, and a hand that never lets go." And we danced under the stars. In the weeks that followed, I got questions. "You're so young, why settle now?" Or "Isn't he too old for you?" but I had long stopped explaining happiness to people who didn't know the cost of healing. Our home became a haven for stories. Writers' workshops. Dinner nights for broken hearts. I didn't just live, I gave others permission to live too. Years passed. And one day, I found myself back at that beach where Adams had once kissed me under the stars. I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to celebrate. Celebrate the girl who survived. Celebrate the woman who rose. I stood at the shore, waves lapping my toes, and said aloud, "I'm proud of you." Not to anyone else. Just to myself. Because I finally understood that happy endings don't come when a prince saves you. They come when you save yourself, and still leave space for love. And this life I have now? It wasn't a dream come true. It was better. It was mine.